Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. My name is Cindy. You are going to be seeing this video on May 10th. I'm recording it a little bit early. I want to take a look today. I'm going to do 4 mini reads, and they're going to be on Biden, Trudeau, Zelensky, and Putin. So I know that I've recently looked at Zelensky and Putin, but by the time you see this, we're going to know if what kind of atrocities Putin had planned for the May 9th Victory Day celebration that they have there. I know it's going to be quite the parade considering most of his equipment is not working, broken, or in Ukraine trying to slaughter people. But I want to take a look and see what's going on there. Apparently, there's also talk that he is undergoing some sort of colon surgery. I think I got that right. And so maybe we'll be able to zero in on his health and see what impact that may have on him and on this insane war going forward. So I'm Canadian, so I'm going to start with Canada. On Sunday, Trudeau made a surprise visit to Kyiv to support, the ongoing efforts to push back Russia. Apparently, there have been more, military aid and additional sanctions coming from Canada. So, there we have that. You have to understand and remember that Canada has a very, very large Ukrainian population. And so for people in this country, in some ways, this war is quite a little insult. And I think it's an insult because, again, as I talked to you before, Austria and Russia and Poland and, the Ukraine, and they're also interconnected. So, I don't know. Anyways, let's take a look at Trudeau first. I don't know how he's doing. I haven't checked his popularity lately, but here in Canada, there's always going to be haters, particularly if you're conservative. There was one of those rallies, fighting against who the heck knows what now. I mean, it was the trucker one was for COVID. I get that one, but there was another one just, I think last week, called Thunder something. And it was motorcycles, but they sort of descended on Ottawa for the day and they dispersed at night. I don't even know what the heck they were protesting because already what are you protesting? All right, come on down because I have questions. Let's go. Okay, so let's take a look at maybe let's take a look at Justin Trudeau and the Canadian government. All right, here we go. Trajectory, Trudeau, and government. Trajectory, Trudeau, and government. Trajectory, Trudeau, and government. Okay, so because the Liberals and the NDP have sort of formed a coalition government, so the NDP votes grouped in, if you will, with the Liberals, which is what sort of gave the Liberals the lead again, okay? They're actually going to be able to get some of the stuff done that he was on his agenda. More importantly, I think some of the stuff that was on the NDP agenda. One of the things that they're pushing for is like covered dental care for Canadians, the same way we have covered medical care. The NDP in particular are really pushing for completely covered dental care, which is huge. So, but it feels as if there are projects that are in the works, and sometimes maybe they're just not getting noticed because there's so much else going on. Um, but for right now, anyways, him and his government are solid. I'm not gonna, like I said, the haters are gonna be haters, but I think overall he's viewed as kind of almost like a stabilizing force at this point. And I think he's viewed as, getting the right things done, having the right priorities. Um, Again, because of the large Ukrainian population here in Canada, he really needed and has focused on sort of the humanitarian efforts and sending money and supplies and military aid, whatever it is, to Ukraine. And you know what? That actually is good. For some reason, I want to say that there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're just simply not privy to. But the effort to help Ukraine is charging ahead. They are not being, Canada, and frankly, the other NATO leaders are not being sort of cowed into backing down. They're starting to see Putin as a paper tiger. Okay, they're starting to see he is somebody who makes threats but doesn't have the sort of wherewithal, if you will, to um, sort of go forward with some of his threats. Now, I'm not diminishing the whole nuclear power thing, but I'm talking about, sort of going ahead and trying to invade other countries or that kind of thing. He doesn't have what it's going to take. He is that person who, bangs the table because he wants you to listen to him and he wants to appear fierce. But it's interesting because more and more it seems as if he's being seen as sort of somebody who is delusional, and they are really doing a pretty good job of isolating Russia and putting it sort of out in the cold, right? They're stripping the resources. They're not allowing. They've really, really interrupted the money flow. They've super interrupted the assets, and and there's just a great deal going on there. Let's also not forget that. She is the second in I can't remember, God almighty, I just can't remember again. But the sort of deputy prime minister, I guess, I don't even know that that's her title, um, is Ukrainian, and she is working very, very closely with our allies to ensure that things continue to move forward. She was instrumental in putting together some of the initial sanction packages that were used globally, because she just had the knowledge to know where sanctions would hit the hardest. Okay, so as for Trudeau, he's going to continue to roll along. Now, there is some stuff coming up in terms of the Canadian Justice Department, the court systems. There's been investigations into the military, and some of the military people don't actually end up looking quite so good. So that's going to continue to dog him. And of course, the ironic thing is, it's not like this started under his reign, but of course, whoever's currently in office takes the hit for it. So it looks like that is going to, just be one more thing that people are going to get all fired up about and sort of blame him for it, even though really doesn't have a lot to do with him. There's always talk of cover up. There's always talk of, what did you do and when did you know? But for now, that sort of justice, that area, is going to continue to move forward. For those of you who are not Canadian, a whole bunch of years ago, Justin Trudeau, he was being yelled at this past week, I think, because apparently he used a naughty word in the House of Commons when he was addressing the opposition. And my point is sort of like he comes by the tradition honestly, a whole bunch of years ago when Pierre Elliott Trudeau was his dad, he got in trouble for saying something in his comments that he shouldn't have said. And somehow he managed to finagle it so that it ended up that what he said officially, according to the records, was fiddle faddle. So I don't know. Maybe Justin's learned something. Chip off the old block. Um, okay, so he is going to have the added benefit of having um, his party and the NDP standing pretty firmly behind him. There are things that he's not going to accomplish. The debt that has been absorbed, COVID and Ukraine, is, it's going to make it hard for him, right? But he is that person who, when he needs to make a decision, he really does make it based on kind of like a moral compass, sort of a sense of this is in the best interest for. Okay, so for right now, it looks like he's going to be doing not bad as we go forward. There's always going to be little scandals that pop up, just as there are little scandals in every other government to try to weaken the leader. But for the most part, he looks like he's going to be in pretty solid ground for the next while. All right, let's take a look at Biden. So I saw something really interesting today, and I can't remember. I think it was on the Ring of Fire video casts, the YouTube videos on the Ring of Fire. And they were talking about the fact that Mexico has now announced that when Texas did that whole blockade thing of the truckers, they ended up rerouting some of their trucks to New Mexico. And they announced that because that went so well, they are permanently sort of basically not going to be using the Texas, I guess, border crossing. They are shifting to go through New Mexico. So there was a 4-day period of time where those border crossing was all screwed up and everything halted. Apparently, they lost something like $1.4 billion. Texas did. And now, why did he do this? I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to appeal to those people who, are immigrant phobic. Smart Money says that he was actually trying to create a sharp rise in inflation because the goods were not getting across the border. Therefore, it interrupted the supply chain to make Biden look bad. And you know what? I swear I don't doubt that for a minute, because at this point, Republicans are going to do everything they can to try to weaken Biden, because even though his current popularity numbers are low, you'd have to be pretty dense to not realize that he has handled the mess that he inherited, really well. He's done a very good job, considering he is being blocked by the Senate at every turn. Okay. Let's take a look at how Biden's doing. I know his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, was in Ukraine. I believe it was this past, I don't know if it was Friday or Saturday, but she was also there paying a visit. If I remember correctly, she sort of went to Poland. That was where she was officially going, but apparently she did go into the country of Ukraine. I don't know for how long or what she was doing there or who she met. But so, again, the Biden administration, is showing a lot of care and compassion that the previous administration would not have had one clue how to, handle this in such a compassionate way. Hold on. Okay. Flying card. So let's take a look at Joe Biden. Um, Current trajectory, Joe Biden. Current trajectory, Joe Biden. Current trajectory, Joe Biden. So I'm sort of in my mind, I'm kind of looking at, you know, 3, 4, maybe even 6 months out from now. So let's see what I know. Okay. He is working step by step by step. He is going through the processes. And even the areas where he is frustrated, like the Justice Department, because they're not moving ahead with stuff that clearly they should be moving ahead with. He is very, very much putting the government back on that, separation of the three arms of government. He's not going to interfere with the Justice Department, although I suspect that on some level he really regrets that decision. I think he made that decision based on trying to make up for the fact that Merrick Garland never ended up on the Supreme Court. He wasn't even sort of acknowledged, they wouldn't even talk to him. But I think that in some ways it frustrates him a little because I think Merrick Garland is just a little bit too plodding. He's just so meticulous and he wants stuff done, but it's moving very, very slowly. So he does have some frustrations. But beyond that, there, he's in such a difficult position right now because he has a Senate that is blocking him at every turn because Joe Manchin is being a bit of an ass. Just in my opinion, that's what he's being. He is a Republican in all ways, except that he has a D after his name. And I sincerely hope the next time he comes up for reelection, and I don't know when that is, but I really hope the people who were, protesting while he was on his little yacht about him not, voting and supporting the things that the people wanted him to. I hope they remember that. And I also hope that the Democrats put in a really strong Democrat to contest him because you don't need a Republican in there. Okay, so as far as Joe Biden goes, he still has some interesting tricks up his sleeve. He is not powerless, and he is not without skills and abilities. He has been instrumental in pulling NATO together in terms of supporting Ukraine. And that goes a long, long way, sort of internationally, to help him kind of regain a lot of the respect and trust that was lost under the former guy's reign of crazy. So that's serving him very, very well, sort of on an international level. Here at home, there's no question about it. He really is in a defensive posture. And as I said, if you have Republicans doing what Abbott did in Texas, like going out of their way to try to destroy the economy, certainly they're doing a bang up job trying to destroy women's rights. All of that, ultimately, it makes Biden look bad because people who don't follow politics aren't really like super aware of the challenges of the Senate. Just look at him and say, well, what are you doing? You're not doing anything to fix it. So that's sort of one of the headwinds that he is really up against as he goes forward. Now, the good news is that once the January 6th committee starts televising their report, that is going to really, really shake up some of the people who sort of kind of tuned out a little bit, okay? And the shakeup is going to end up proving to be very auspicious for him. So, kind of what you have over the course of the summer is two things that are coming together to really put some wind at the in Joe's back. Okay, one is the whole abortion thing, and as I said, unfortunately, I really do see Roe falling. I see it coming back, but I think it's going to take just a little bit of time. But the fact that, frankly, it's more likely than not to fall then has a very powerful impact on the women and the enlightened men of the United States, because that is going to become one of their big issues. It was a Republican issue for a long time, but I can tell you it's now going to become a Democratic issue. So you have the whole Roe abortion situation, and you have the whole J6 committee situation. And those two things are going to, and it's interesting because I don't know if it's necessarily going to make people who are kind of annoyed with Joe, if they're going to make them less annoyed with him, but they're going to become really, really fired up in terms of what kind of voting happens in the midterms. And if this abortion thing, this Roe versus Wade thing gets stricken, and then the long sort of fight begins to bring it back, it's going to keep people fired up, kind of like the way people were fired up for like the entire 4 years that who was in the office. So this is going to be like helpful to him. And that's a good thing because, frankly, the last thing he needs right now with the Joe Mansions and the cinemas is to lose any leverage he has in the Senate. In fact, he needs to gain in the Senate, and more importantly, the governors and their legislatures, they need a stronger Democratic push, because they are kind of making the decisions state by state that in many cases are absolutely draconian. Okay. But Biden looks like he's actually going to be able to weather the next period of time leading up into the midterms. It very much feels like he is going to be on pretty solid footing. He's going to take a lot of flack, though. I got to tell you, this Ten of Swords is not a great thing, but it very much feels as if, with continued prayers and light and protection around him and his administration, a lot of the swords are going to sort of bounce away. They're not going to actually penetrate. Yeah, it's interesting because it very much feels like the message that maybe the Democrats were trying to sort of figure out what it was going into the midterms, whatever that was, has been completely rebooted, simply because they now are going to have two really, really significant issues that they're going to need to deal with. Their messaging is going to change, and I think it's going to become much, much more forceful. And it's going to shine light on literally some of the things that really need to have light shone on them. And again, every time I check with my pendulum, it tells me that the Democrats are actually going to gain some seats in the Senate. So everybody needs to do what they need to do to make that happen. And of course, people need to do what they're going to do in terms of the whole pushing back on the Supreme Court decision about Roe. All right, let's take a look at Zelensky. Trajectory, Zelensky, Ukraine. Trajectory, Zelensky, Ukraine. Trajectory, Zelensky, Ukraine. Very, very nice way to start. He's got the star card. He has the Ace of Pentacles. Okay, so more resources, supply, support are going to continue to flood into Ukraine to help him move forward. The partnerships that he's developing right now are actually very strong, and they're going to serve him well as they go forward. You know, he is not surrendering, and nor are the people of Ukraine surrendering. Whether that is the people who have been sort of have stayed in Ukraine to fight, or some of the, women and children who have been sort of moved to other places for their safety, none of them are surrendering. They're just not. They're standing very, very firm about the fact that this is their domain. Ukraine is theirs, and they have no intentions whatsoever of giving that up. So what happens is you have the power and the energy and the sheer stubbornness of the Ukrainian people, and you have Zelensky, who is staying so solid and so strong. And so they almost like feed each other, right? When Zelensky's like, oh God, is this ever going to end? How do I get, the country out of this? The people of the country sort of rile around him. And when the people of the country get a little fatigued because, they're losing people are dying, he sort of is able to, um, you know, bring them up and help them find, that will and that fighting perspective again. Interesting. So it looks as if he is getting information regarding Putin from inside Putin's circle. I don't say that lightly, but there are communications that are working their way to them that is in support of Ukraine, but it's coming from Russia. It may take a while, and he may be battle weary, and the country may be exhausted and to a great extent depleted and destroyed and shattered. But ultimately, justice is coming, and ultimately, um, the Russia is actually going to be pushed back. They may end up with a very, very small, narrow sort of corridor in the east of Ukraine, but it's not going to be big swaths of the country. It's like I almost see it like a narrow strip. Okay. Um, if they have to give up anything, I think they might have to give up something, but it just doesn't look like it's going to be big and massive. It is going to be Russia who they are able to push into retreat, and the Ukrainians are going to continue to fight until they find themselves in a far more kind of solid space. So, as far as Zelensky is concerned, it's important that all of us continue to keep up our prayers, our good wishes, our domes of protection, our light, to, and not only Zelensky, but to the land of Ukraine, to the people of Ukraine, and to all those who are helping support Ukraine in this incredibly, incredibly difficult and unjustified time. All right, let's take a look at somebody else who wants to be king. Okay. Putin, overall health and trajectory. Putin, overall health and trajectory. Putin, overall health and trajectory. Okay. So he is right now far more restricted than I think he likes to let on that he is. And he is far more kind of blind, okay? Because there was so much that was hidden from him. And there continues to be so much that is hidden from him because, I mean, he's losing generals left, right, and center. I mean, they're dying on the battlefields. Um, the generals really don't have autonomy, right? And so they always need to send everything up to, higher. I mean, I think that their orders must come directly from Putin because they don't have the autonomy to kind of make their own decisions out on the field. So everything has to go back to him, to that guy, and then it has to come back. And so there's a lot of stuff that he isn't aware of simply because no one's telling him. He is so focused on taking things back to that USSR place that in some ways he doesn't even question what he's hearing because he likes what he's hearing. He likes that things are going well, and they're not. Enough of it seeps through that it's a bit of an embarrassment for him. Enough of it seeps through that he sort of reacts. I got to tell you, he reacts sort of like in a childish way, sort of a little bit like having temper tantrums. Um, he he continues in terms of the people of Russia. He continues to promote this insane narrative that is really, really outside of the realm of reality at this point in terms of how Russia's doing, why they're there, what they're accomplishing. But, there's a whole lot of families who have lost their men in Ukraine because of what was it initially, a military maneuver or something? I don't even know what he called it anymore. It's just a flat out genocide war. Um, so, and interesting because it's almost feeling like it's sort of like he doesn't feel like he can exactly rely on his intuition, his gut feeling. He's being shaken up a little bit by the fact that on some level he is well aware of the fact that he does not have all the information at his disposal that he should have. He will continue to do that blustering, don't you do this or there's going to be consequences. Because honestly, in some ways, that's really all he has. I actually think that if you tried to, I don't know, engage the nuclear code, I actually think he would be stopped by his own people. And so right now, there's definitely kind of all he has is that blustery strength. I can bend you all to my will. All of NATO will fall and kiss my butt. It's not going to happen. Okay. he is also facing a couple of kind of difficult decisions. In some ways, it feels very much like, so the Lover's card is interesting here. One of the things that has really thrown him is that he didn't think that there would be so much, riding to the rescue of Ukraine going on, because really nobody gave a crap when he sort of invaded Crimea, right? But there's something else going on with here with this Two of Swords. Okay, he's sick, and that is one of the driving motivators to what he's doing. I said it before. For him, it's about his legacy. And he believes that his legacy has to be reuniting the countries and bringing the USSR back to its imagined glory, because I don't think it was that glorious, frankly. But, it's his perception. And so the decisions he's making now, and as we move forward, really is about that sense that his time is running out and he doesn't like the way he may ultimately end up being judged. And so for him, he honestly sees the only victory is by forcing his will. I don't think it's going to work for him. Yeah. I wish I could give you an end date for this war. I really wish I could. I think May is going to be a very, very difficult month. But at some point, there is going to be a retreat. He's going to have to retreat. Yeah. He doesn't, his ego doesn't like very much the fact that he's been sort of pushed out of all the circles and he really is out in the cold and he stands there with a bunch of other wannabe dictators. That's not the legacy he wanted. But he's sick. And there's a departure coming, a disappointment. He's really disappointed in how things are going. And that's why when the generals lie to him, he believes whatever little sprinkle of good news he can get his hands on. And so he doesn't question whether they're telling him the truth. But he's definitely in for a bit of a rude time going forward. And here comes judgment on him. Okay. So that's what I know today. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for supporting this channel. I'm so grateful for it. And I just do want to mention that if anybody is interested in a private reading, you're going to find that information in the description box below. Until next time, take care. Be well. We'll see you really soon. Bye-bye.